Well, Caitlin Ryan is in Beira with Médecins Sans Frontières, and she joins us now on the phone. Caitlin, thanks for joining us. Just describe the situation where you are.
Yeah, I think in many ways the city of Beira is starting to return to life, and you could be kind of forgiven for forgetting exactly the magnitude of the disaster that has occurred here. People have cleaned the streets and they're starting to repair their homes, but hundreds of thousands of people have been left homeless, and pretty much the entire city only has intermittent access to electricity and fresh water.
So obviously it's that access to fresh water which is the problem, and therefore we are seeing now some cases of cholera.
Yeah, exactly. It's not really surprising that after a cyclone of this magnitude that we are seeing cases of waterborne diseases. It's always one of our huge concerns after a natural disaster. And here we've literally seen people drink stagnant water from the side of the road because of the limited access. So it's not surprising that the 5 cases have been confirmed, and indeed in our centres we are treating hundreds more.
So what has the response been from MSF?
So far we are running 3 diarrhea treatment centres, or now cholera treatment centres, and we're rapidly scaling up in order to put online a few more. And we're also working in the areas outside Beira. While Beira was really heavily hit by the cyclone, the areas outside of Beira were hit by flooding even before the cyclone, which was then, compounded by the cyclone. So there are cities like Bouzy, which are still pretty much cut off from the outside world, and we're heading in there on helicopters. We're also obviously here. One of the biggest parts of our response is trying to figure out the clean water situation and get some clean water to the community. And
Caitlin, it's not just Mozambique, but also neighbouring Zimbabwe and Malawi have also been affected.
That's correct. Basically, heavy rains really flooded Malawi and Zimbabwe before they headed out to sea, turned into the cyclone, came back and wreaked more havoc. So it's been raining very heavily in those countries for a while, and they're suffering from severe flooding as well.
So there's obviously the immediate threat to people's health, given, as you talk about there, the access to clean water. But also there's potentially future problems with food, because I understand that there have been massive crop losses in those 3 countries.
That's correct. So, of course, immediately following the cyclone, there's immediate priorities in terms of shelter, food and healthcare for the people who have survived. But in the weeks that follow, you really expect to see a peak in diseases like waterborne diseases, malaria, skin infections, respiratory tract infections. And then moving forward, we do expect to see that food will become even more scarce given the crop losses. And of course, already there are areas that are cut off from their usual supply chains, so people are already hungry. And even many of our staff are saying that they can only eat 1 meal a day because of what's available.
And Caitlin, have the authorities and also aid agencies had the time to scour the entire area? Obviously, that's very difficult, particularly given road access. In a lot of cases, it's washed out. Do you feel as though they have a good assessment of just how many people have been affected, and also what the death toll may be at?
I think maybe we'll never know the real death toll. People who may have perished in the floods will be washed away, and they may never be found. So it's likely that we'll never know the real scope of the tragedy. In terms of providing for those who have survived, there's a lot of helicopters buzzing around, and there has been a huge mobilisation of humanitarian aid from the Mozambican government and from other governments in the region. The South African government and many others around have sent teams. But it is possible that there are some communities who have received nothing. And indeed, when we have visited remote areas, people are very hungry and in need of shelter and clean water.
And Caitlin, how would you describe the resilience of the people there?
I mean, the people are pretty amazing, actually. You talk to our staff, they've lost everything, and they're turning up to work today and caring for others. So it's pretty impressive to work in a cholera treatment centre all day and to go home to a house without a roof and to attempt to care for your own family. So very impressive people here, that's for sure.
Caitlin Ryan from Médecins Sans Frontières. Thanks so much for talking to us, and all the best in your work there.
Thanks so much.